Hey guys, welcome back. This is going to be a very classic show and tell video. I originally was going to do a video where I show you like plants that I recently received and just how they're doing so far since they came to me. And then I was just like, why don't I just show you everything? Because I have so many categories of things that I want to show you that don't make up enough for a full video, or at least like a video of the length that I'm typically doing. So I'm just going to show you everything I can possibly think of in this plant room. You guys just chill, do your laundry, do your repotting, clean your house, and I'll just be in the background. Whatever I can bring to the camera, I will bring to the camera, but sometimes I'm gonna probably have to bring you to the plants because they're too hard to pick up. Yeah, there's just like so much stuff and I'm so excited. Okay, so first thing I want to show you, I think it was about a month ago, I posted a video showing a bunch of plants I'd gotten from the States. These are plants, like some of them were traded, some of them were gifted, some of them I had purchased, and I just thought I'd show you updates on some of them. I'll link that video in the description in case anyone missed it and wanted to see what the plants look like when they first got here. Okay, so in that video, I got some plants from my friend Dania, and this is her Instagram handle. She so kindly sent a couple of wishlist plants that she propped or bred herself. The first one was Alocasia tanderusa or Jacqueline corms, which I had said I wanted in my Alocasia video. I've since then cooled down on like trying to get Alocasias, because now I have this and I have another one I'm going to show you, and I think I'm good. Like, I'm not going to get crazy into Alocasias because they're just a little too fragile for my style of parenting. So she had sent 2 Jacqueline corms in moss and they had grown some roots. They were active, but no leaves had pushed out yet. So I separated them into 2, and after I posted that video, everyone was like, do stratum, just do stratum. I was like, oh yeah. I never think of doing stratum. So people were like, do one in stratum, do one in pon, which is my typical medium for growing Alocasia corms. But I was just like, let's just do both of them in stratum, because I kind of know how it goes with pon. And the stratum, holy crap, I get it now. Look at this first leaf. Like, it's huge. That petiole is really long too. It's been sitting in a bin. It's like in 100% humidity. It sits like right here under Soltech lights right now. It didn't seem to have dropped any roots in stratum. It just kept growing more roots and it was so fast. I think it's kind of falling over. Yeah, I was really not prepared for a leaf this big, because usually when I grow alocasias from corm, the first leaf is not this big. And I think it's still expanding a little bit. And the second one popped a little bit later, also doing really well. Like, the roots are starting to fill out, and the first leaf, let me see if I can show you like this. Smaller. It's not going to be tiny because it hasn't even fully unfurled yet. It's going to expand a little more, but it's doing so good. And thank you guys so much for reminding me to use stratum sometimes. I've quit aquarium keeping, so I don't really have any use for it for aquariums. So being able to use it for props like this is really good. I don't know why this one's falling over. It's really rooted. But yeah, this is going to be my go-to Alocasia corm substrate for sure. Maybe growing long term as well, because this is not from that video, but I also received a plant from this beautiful person named Marnie. Her handle is Passionate Plant Person. So in Charmaine's Alocasia video, I believe it was, she did say she wanted a Alocasia Dragon's Breath, Heterophylla Dragon's Breath, and that was also on a wish list of mine. And so she sent us 2 little baby props, and like, it's so cute. It was, I think, 2 leaves. Yeah, it was this leaf and this leaf when I first got it. Charmaine let me have the bigger one, and this one has been growing so robustly, and I got it potted in pon. I basically was like potting in pon. I didn't want to use all stratum because I was like, this is just going to grow in this long term, so maybe I don't want it all to be stratum and just turn into mud. So I basically did this like layer cake situation. And it went from, what was it? I think it was in, yeah, it was in perlite when she sent it, and I moved it to pon, and it didn't drop all the roots like alocasias typically do. It's rooting really happily in this, and this leaf is so beautiful. This one's living in my living room, and it's just nonstop growing. It's pushing out another leaf. So stratum, people swear by stratum, and I didn't doubt that it's a good substrate for getting like root growth, but I really didn't, I don't know, I just didn't think about it. It never crosses my mind when I'm thinking of a substrate to use, but it's good. It's really good. I'm very, very impressed. And maybe this kind of like stratum pond situation will be my go-to substrate for alocasias going forward. I don't really see myself using it for anything other than alocasias because the majority of my plants aren't so fragile in the root department. Like when you repot it, it doesn't drop all of its roots. Alocasias for me are the plants that are in that kind of category where you just like are so scared of touching anything. Otherwise it will just like rot everything off and you start over from like a single leaf plant. So yeah, probably because I don't have that many alocasias, that will just be my use for my stratum. So thank you to everybody who recommended that. The other plant I'd gotten from Dania was her hybrid. So it was the King of Spades crossed with a Tazula red crystallinum. And it was in a little tiny seedling cup. I think it was like I think they're 2-inch. I don't know. They're the little tiny ones. And I moved it up to this size pot. I do see some roots on the side, but the newest leaf is so cute. I don't know if you guys remember from that video, but like the baby leaves were so bumpy. Like it almost looks like a luxuriance hybrid, but this new leaf is starting to show silver and it's so round. It really does look like it's gonna keep up this like ultra circular leaf appearance because every leaf has been so round. Yeah, so Dania, if you're watching, this is doing so well. I'm so excited for this to get big because this is a cross that I freaking love. King of Spades, red crystallinum, it's a match made in heaven. So in that video, I also showed some plants that I got from my friend Owen. This is his handle, and this plant is ridiculous. It's Midnight Velvet. It has finally put out a leaf in my care. It's beautiful. The light is really blowing it out. If I bring it back here, maybe you can see a little bit better. No, it still looks really, really bright. But can you see the red veins? When it first came out, the veins were like dark purple and they started slowly turning red over time. And it's like such a nice upsize from this last leaf. He had it in moss when he sent it to me. So I put it into tree fern soil. It's starting to root in there. And he was telling me that his experience plus what other people were telling him about this plant is that it likes it quite wet. I don't disagree, but it also doesn't take up water that fast, but it's obviously happy being quite wet. I've been keeping a reservoir on this and just never letting it dry out. And it's been a little bit wetter than some of my other Anthuriums. I don't see roots going crazy. I do see like a new root kind of starting from here and entering the substrate, but I don't see much down here yet. It just has the root system from the mother plant. So this is not like a super well-known plant, but this is a hybrid that comes from Australia. I had featured it in my video where I talked about like the wishlist plants that to me are unobtainable because they're just like logistically too difficult to get or like are too scarce on this side of the world. In Australia, I don't think they're that hard to get, or like hybrids of this plant are quite easy to get, I think, from what I understand, but you really don't see this hybrid that often. I'm pretty sure the lineage of this plant is unknown. To me, it looks like a pap dress hybrid. And I'm pretty sure as it gets older, it gets more and more purple. And it's like this dark, almost aubergine, maybe not as red tone as aubergine, but like, you know, like a very rich royal purple. I've seen other people's Midnight Velvets look like that. And like this leaf did not disappoint. It's just such a nice, healthy upsize. It did have spider mites at one point, but he had treated it before he sent it out. And there's some like little speckles on this leaf. So like this was pre-treatment and I don't see anything on the newest leaf. And if it has spider mites, it would have shown up by now. So I'm really happy. I also treated it once or twice since I got it from him. And then I kept it isolated for a little bit, didn't see anything. So it's in there with my other plants. It's in my tent now. And it seems to be doing really well. I'm just like, I love is at the very front of my tent. I just look at it every day. Another plant I got from Owen is this SP Nova Costa Rica. It's so cute. It's finally pushed out its first leaf. This little needle guy right here, and it's been rooting really well. It was also in moss and I moved it to tree fern soil and roots here, also some roots right here. This is a plant that originally came from Rory and I don't really know a lot about it, but I just treated it like I do my Wenlingeri and keep it in like a kind of a pretty chunky tree fern soil mix, I would say. Like as chunky as I typically like to go. I don't like to go super chunky. And it's been doing well, I think. It's just living at the very, very top of my my tent. It's pretty close to grow lights, and this like new leaf is so orangey. It's like this orangey olive color. And when these strap leaves come out, it can be really deceiving because it looks like it's gonna be the tiniest leaf and it'll maybe end up something like this, but they can surprise you sometimes. So I'm not gonna like get my hopes up too high that it's gonna be a really big upsize, but it can be. What I'm saying is like with my, when lingeri, sometimes the leaves will come out like looking like tiny little toothpicks and it'll end up like this big. They can expand like crazy. So I don't know if that's true of this plant. I'm just hoping that it does. But this one is also super, super cute. The third plant I got from Owen was a stump. So it's just like waking up now. It's nothing really to show right now. I just wanted to show you these two. In that video, I also got plants from my dear sweet friend Amanda, or Bunny on Instagram. One of them was a plant I said I was going to show you when the new leaf came out. It was a plant that had, I think, one leaf when it came, and there was some cold damage, so that leaf dropped. And then in Charmaine's care, before she gave it to me, because it went to Charmaine first, it pushed a leaf out right away. And then when I was bringing it home, I dropped a plant on it and that new little emergent leaf just broke off. So it was a stump. Like, it was like a plant, and then it was a stump, and then it was a plant, and then it was a stump. So now it's a plant again, and I didn't break the leaf, and the new leaf is so stinking cute. So this one is Ace of Purple crossed with Papillilaminum, and this is a Tyler hybrid. Tyler is Russo ATL, or Russo plants. It is really stinking pretty, and I'm so impressed with how fast this thing grows, because how many times did it get broken and then it just pops right back up? It's already pushing another growth. And I wanted to show you this just like to show you guys another substrate option. I'll see if I can get a little bit out here, because in my video last week I had gotten some plants from Palm Street. I'd ordered plants, and one of them was a Rory Carla, and I was showing you that mix, and I just wanted to show you Amanda's mix because I remember saying it reminded me, or like Rory's mix reminded me a lot of Amanda's mix. Not that I think they're related, but this is what it looks like. It's very orchiata heavy, and there's like perlite in there, and I can see bits of what I can only assume is Lechuza, and I can see tree fern in there. And you can use this kind of mix semi-hydro. The thing about orchiata that's really nice is that it's compatible for semi-hydro because of the way they process it. Makes it really, it breaks down really slowly compared to other fir barks. So if you're looking for a way to make your pond mix more organic, you can add a whole bunch of orchiata in there. She has tree fern in there. I'm pretty sure if I go further down, there's gonna be more pond near to the bottom of the mix. But this is super, super heavy on the orchiata. I really like this mix. It's a very premium mix, but I really like it. So I always save whatever she sends in this because it's like a really nice mix. I'm completely out of orchiata. I just like trying not to spend too much money on substrates right now. But definitely if you're not 100% happy with Lechuza, because it's not, like, some people really like it, some people don't really like it. If you're trying to like tweak it so it fits more your style of growing and you want to make it more water retentive, try orchiata. Maybe you can mix some tree fern in there as well. Some of you guys might have plants from this same seed batch. Last year, my friend Jing did a batch of Dark Phoenix Selfs. I had 2 seeds from her. One of them didn't germinate and the other one did. And I'm pretty sure this plant absorbed its sibling into itself because it's getting big and it's so freaking cute. Look at this. Look at this little baby. I think it looks quite a lot like Dark Phoenix, the original Dark Phoenix. It's really bumpy. Like, do you see that? But the difference with this one compared to my original Dark Phoenix is that the newest leaves all have like reddish veins. So it gets to like about 80% hardened with these really red veins, but then when it fully hardens, it just turns green. But it's so cute. If you have any of Jing's Dark Phoenixes, like, let me know what yours look like because this one is so freaking cute. Charmaine also has one that does red veins, and the other one that she has doesn't do red veins. It would be cool if the red veins would just stick around after it hardens, but it doesn't. Maybe later when it gets more mature, who knows? But I'm very happy with this. This one's getting really big. I boat moded this. It was in like a little cup. It was roughly, oh, I think I have the cup right here. It was basically this cup, and I got it into, I'm trying not to drip, this size pot, and it started rooting quite quickly. It wasn't just tree fern with, I think, pond or perlite mixed through. That was Jing's mix, and I just put it into tree fern soil. Look at the bottom. But also, if you have one that's not as big as this one, but it's like sizing up slowly with each leaf, do not despair. Oftentimes with these seed batches, like the first harvest of the seeds will get going quicker, and everything else harvested later will be a little bit slower. Basically, just think of it like you're like 1 or 2 leaves behind. Okay, I want to show you guys. I am so in love with this plant. So earlier this year, sometime around February, my friend Jose, Anthurium on Instagram, was purging his entire collection because he had to move to Australia. So we bought a whole bunch of his collection. And one plant that I got, I didn't think I would love it this much, but I've been adoring it to bits and pieces. So this was sold as Carla from NSE Tropicals, but this was contaminated. Nobody really knows definitively with what, but I think it's some sort of Papillilaminum. And this plant is so stinking beautiful. The hardened leaf is super dark, very much like Carla, but the veins aren't quite like Carla. The petioles are pretty square, but not quite as square as Carla's, but the emergent leaf is just so red. In certain angles, in real life for sure, but it doesn't show on camera, it has like a purple shift. I don't know if you can see it. I'm looking at the viewfinder. It looks just kind of reddish, but when I look at it here, it's like red to purple gradient, and it's, oh, and I love having it at the front of my tent because I just like, I literally sit here on my chair and just stare at this. With every leaf that it puts out, it just gets prettier and prettier. And the exciting part is it's finally activated its offset. It had 2 growth points when I first got it, but it kept activating that growth point and then it shrivels and then it would activate it again and then shrivel again, but finally a leaf came out of it. It's so cute looking at these two side by side. I will unfortunately have to like separate it and grow it a little bit, like root it out and then sell it because I do have to recoup some costs on this plant because it wasn't like crazy expensive, but it wasn't cheap either. But even though it's so young, the color on this offset is such a close match to the more mature leaf. Oh my gosh. I think this is the closest to the real life color I've ever been able to capture. Because every time I show this on camera and I'm like editing it, I was like, why does it look orange? It's not orange. It's just like this deep, winey red with some purples. When I got it from him, it was in pond. So I moved it to tree fern soil and it has just overtaken the pot. It's ready for an upsize. So as soon as I see roots on this one, probably when it hardens off, it's going to start poking out roots. So when I see about a root this big on the offset, then I'm going to just chop it off, pull it out, and move this whole thing up to a bigger size. And then we'll continue living our happy lives together because we're best friends and I love her so much. Just gonna put her right there so she can be beside me. Another plant I got from Jose. So this is Papillilaminum Fort Sherman crossed with Ralphalinum. So this is a cross done by Grant or Grantharians. This leaf is freaking beautiful. So this grew out of the apical bud. This little beauty is an offset, and I was really not expecting this little offset to look so cute and so like, I had to send a picture of this to Charmaine. This is a plant that we co-own, and I was like, is it joking? Like these two leaves together are perfection. Like these pointy little ears, they're so pointy, just, oh, I want to eat it. And this leaf has also been just stealing my attention because it is so, it's like, how do I describe this color? Firstly, it's really, really matte. It almost looks like a matte eyeshadow. You know how velvety anthuriums will have this glitter? This thing does not glitter. It's just matte. And it's kind of got these like little, looks like blood vessels running through it. And it's a really pretty blue toned, almost like an inky teal color. I kind of figured this one needed lower light to be dark, and I pushed it to the back of my tent. So probably that's like the lowest light I can possibly give anything in my tent. And it does seem to have paid off. It is facing the light, but it's not reaching too much. When this one gets a little bit more hardened, because it is still expanding, it's still pretty floppy as you can see. So when it gets to about at least 80% hardened, I can see a big fat root coming out of it. Basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take shears and just snip it right at the base and just pull it out. Because my guess is that one thick root, I can see it's probably like one of those thick udon roots. That one thick root will be easy to kind of extract from the soil, and then that way I don't have to disrupt the mother plant. This one was also upon transition to tree fern soil. It has taken to the substrate. I got all these roots here, roots down here. So what I will do then is I'll be able to fill this pot up a little bit more, because when I first originally planted it, I didn't plant it too deep because this was active, so I didn't want to bury the offset too much. So now that this has grown out, once I cut it off, then I'll be able to like kind of fill the soil up to here and start activating these roots that kind of have dried off. But I think that will probably make these roots root out into the substrate. All that to say, I'm so glad we got this plant. This was such a good like joint purchase. I think we're gonna have to sell this offset. Like Charmaine wants to, she really wanted to have this one. I'm gonna leave it up to her so she can change her mind if she wants to. But she originally was like, we should just sell it so we can recoup our costs. And then I have two other props of this. So maybe she can have one of those and we can just sell this one because it already is showing the traits of like what it will end up being. So it's less of a gamble for whoever gets this plant. Look at this. Look at this hardened leaf. I'm so excited for this plant. I didn't also expect to love this as much. There's so many Papillilaminums floating around, especially after Tropicals and Ecuagenera started selling the Gunayala Papillilaminums. Like there's a lot of Dark Phoenixes, there's a lot of Paps, and these are plants that I think I have always loved and I always will love, but I can understand how some people are just like, oh, another Pap, you know, but this is different to me. There just aren't that many that are so sharp. I'll always have a soft spot for really knife-like plants, really tall pointy ears. This one also has beautiful red veins on the back. And I also do think that the color and the texture of this leaf is nothing like what I own. Most of the Papillilaminums I have are more of a true green, but this one is really blue tone. Oh, also, I'll see if I can find a photo, but when those leaves come out, they're like black purple. It's almost like the color of a Raven ZZ. It is so dark. It's so good. Okay, I wanted to do a little update on one of like the greatest loves of my plant life, my King of Spades. This thing has gone through some a journey. So I had chopped this kind of late last year, I want to say, because I wanted to get a prop for Amanda. So I had sent her a prop and it was so freaking cute, but it also took a really long time to activate. The King of Spades, to me, at least this plant of mine, has not been easy to propagate. I have lost so many cuttings of it. And what I've learned is that I can't prop this and take a cutting if it doesn't have a leaf attached, because if it's just a stump, it will just disintegrate. So that kind of limits me on like where I can cut it on the stem. And also the petioles grow quite close together. And also it grows really slow. So slow growth, really stacked petioles. The stem doesn't elongate that quickly. So when I do cut it, I often have to cut it like really almost vertical. Like it's like a sharp diagonal like that. So since I had cut it last year, I had only put out one leaf. This weirdo right here with a really big forehead that kind of, I don't know, there was like some pest damage on it. I've treated it multiple times since and I think it might be okay. Recently, Amanda sent me a photo of her baby. So this is the leaf that I sent it with. And then it has since grown a leaf in her care and it is the fattest thing I have ever seen. I was like saying to her that it's wider than it is tall because I've never seen a leaf on this plant that looks like that when it was young, when it got bigger. That is like the fattest leaf I've ever seen and it's so freaking cute. I think she really wasn't expecting to care that much about the King of Spades. She does say that she really loves it more than she thought she would, which I hope means that she actually really loves the plant because I really wanted her to have one because it's so freaking adorable. So a couple months ago, somebody reached out to me to see if I had any cuttings of my King of Spades that she could possibly trade me for. And I didn't. I only had that one that I was meant to be for Amanda. So I was like, I don't have any. I don't know if I'm going to be able to cut it soon because I just cut it. So she was like, oh, no worries. And then she followed up later with like plants that she wanted to trade. And I was just like, well, I can't turn that down. Like it was like, it's going to be an amazing trade. And I'm not getting my hopes up. Like, you know, like she might change her mind and decide she doesn't want it anymore. But in any case, I was thinking because this plant is so slow growing and the props take quite a long time to wake up, I'm just gonna cut it. So I did like the scariest cut I've ever done. So this is the prop. It's a very ugly leaf. This is a really super old leaf. There's old spider mite damage on it. This damage was on the plant when it was emerging. But the really super exciting thing is it only took a few weeks and it's active. Am I pointing at it? Oh, it's right here. Right here. I saw something poking out. I was like, please tell me that's not a root. And it's red, so it's growth point and it hasn't rooted yet, but the roots from the mother plant are still alive. They're still green. But do you see how dicey this chop is? This is straight down. Like I did a vertical chop, and usually the top of the plant always survives. It always roots. It's the bottom, the lower down cuttings that don't make it. I even took 2 cuttings the time that I propped it for Amanda, and there was one with like very little roots, but a leaf attached. That one, nothing. Just turned into like this milky, mushy mess. Luckily one did survive and that went to Amanda. So this one is going to be traded. Once it pushes out a leaf, I'm gonna chop this thing right off, and it's just gonna be one little leaf in a huge pot. But something magical is in the air, because as soon as I chopped it, it pushed a flower out and it pushed a leaf out. This leaf is looking pretty healthy. Look how red it is. Oh my gosh. It's looking pretty good. And it has also started to root out in the pot, also tree fern soil, like at the bottom. You can see a whole bunch of roots here at the back as well. This thing roots like King of Spades have the best roots. They're so thick and noodly. I just touched that emergent leaf. I felt it with my fingers. If I bruised it, I'm gonna be so mad. Even though this leaf is starting to go like crispy at the edges, probably from all the chops, and I do underwater this sometimes because it does take up, it's very drought tolerant for an Anthurium, but it does take up water really quickly. So sometimes I fall behind on my watering. So I think that's what the crispy edges are. So this is the second flower. The first flower, I split the pollen into 2 halves. I did half the pollen on Jing's plant, which is tofu, and I gave the other half to Charmaine, and she put it on her red crystal port from Amanda. And I think that's gonna be super nice because her red crystal port is so red and so round and so beautiful. So both of those seem to have taken, but I just don't know if it's gonna go a whole 9 yards. Like sometimes it'll start producing berries, but almost when it's like about to turn into real berries, it just gives up. So I won't get my hopes up too high. I was told by the seller of this that when I first, because I got this plant so long ago before it even was called King of Spades, and he said that he did get it from Haji Uli. I mean, there's no way to prove that, but I also don't know what he gains from that because I already bought the plant. It's not like I'm gonna get another one from him. So yeah, that's my story, that I think that this does come from Haji Uli. I forgot to show you this plant that I got from Jose before he left. This is an unknown plant. Oh, it's rooting nicely. Okay, this he got from someone in the States. Like he forgot what she sold it as, and he has no idea what it is. And he was like looking back on his messages and just checking to see this petioles, because I don't know. This came from a stick. It was a little stick prop, and he was like, this is some sort of Papillilaminum or pap hybrid. And this first leaf grew out. I was like, does this ring any bells? He's like, nope, but it's really cute. And then this leaf grew out, which is like way bigger. And I was like, does this ring any bells? And he's like, nope, but it's really cute. It has like kind of a reddish back. I know it's a pap something. Is it a pure pap? I don't know. It's really, really round. And it has kind of like a curled back keyhole sinus. And I don't know if that will hold up. It's very bumpy. Does anybody have any guesses? He was like, maybe it's a pap dress, but I was looking at the petioles and it's not round. It does have like, I don't know if you can properly see it, but there's like little ridges running down it. It would be really cool if it was a pap dress, but I don't know how I'll ever know. But he gave it to me, I think it was tree fern pond mix, I'm pretty sure. And I had it basically in that mix. It rooted out really well. So it was like a stump like this. It came off of this one. So this is like one of the growth points. There's another one on here. So I just separated the two and I put this into tree fern soil. My usual potting setup with like at the bottom, I see roots here. So that's really good. And well, I guess we'll just see what this turns into, but it's very cute. It got bumped into a whole bunch of times, so it's got some marks on it, but it's like very fat and very round. Okay, so I wanted to show you how my Carla leaf hardened. Ta-da! It got so big and it's kind of alarming. Like this is how big it is. Next to my giant head. Any Chinese speakers in here? If you have a big head, there is a saying. There is a nursery rhyme. I don't know if it's like a nursery rhyme. It's something, it's kind of like bullying. When people have big heads, like usually children, there's like a nursery rhyme that goes like, 大头大头下雨不愁，人家有伞你有大头, which means like big head, If it rains, no worries. Other people have umbrellas, but you have a big head. So like my parents never said that to me because they're not mean like that, but like aunties and stuff would say that to me. So just know that I have a really big head, to the point where like most people's hats like will not fit on my head. And it's a good amount bigger than the last leaf, which would have been this one here. And it's really veiny for a Carla. And here is the flower. If you just look at this, it's like, oh, it's like an Anthurium flower, cute. But then when you look at next to the leaf, it looks like an anglerfish because it just got this like tiny little dangling thing on top. I'm obviously not gonna pollinate it because it's the first flower. If I look in here, it looks like, I don't know if you can see the shadow of the spadix inside of the space. So this hasn't opened yet, but it comes to about here. So it's going to be this like stubby little tiny thing. It will get bigger as it grows. It will lengthen a little bit, but it's not going to be very big. I will see what pollen I can get off of it. Sometimes first flowers won't go through a receptive phase. It won't produce pollen even. So we'll see what happens. So I'm not getting my hopes up. It would be nice to get pollen off of it. But after that finishes flowering, then this thing is going to get chopped. These roots are insane. Like, it's filled out this pot so fast. It goes all the way around. So it's going to be root bound pretty soon. But that's not the reason I want to chop it. I'm just getting some sheath off. The reason I want to chop it is because this is one of the plants that might be traded in this potential mythical trade that I really want to have happen. I can probably only get one chop out of it, but I'm pretty sure I can get a chop out of it. I mean, I have to, right? But look how thick the stem has gotten at this point. I don't know how old this plant is. It's probably not even a year old, but it's just unstoppable. So that will get chopped. If I can get more than one, that would be great because then I can give a piece to Charmaine. It would just be nice to be able to chop it, see if it takes a long time to wake up. I've heard that Carla's can be really finicky when it get chopped. So like it will either drop all its leaves or take a really long time to wake up. So the sooner I get it chopped, the sooner I'll know. I thought I had a lot more time because I thought it would take like 3 to 4 months for that King of Spades to wake up, but it's already waking up now. Another plant I want to chop for that trade is my Woo 2 Carla. This was the leaf that was really fresh when I brought it to Charmaine's house. So we did like a Palm Street live at her house. I brought all these plants over to do like a show and tell because it wasn't like a sale. It wasn't a live sale. We were just doing like a Anthurium show and tell Q&A kind of thing. And this I was holding the bin of plants. I was like, isn't that crazy how like I brought all these plants over and nothing seems to have gotten like super badly damaged. So I was holding this bin and I just like walked into a wall. It was the corner of a wall and I walked right into the corner of it, and that corner of that wall precisely hit my Carla. The one plant I did not want to damage. It got so messed up, but it still looks beautiful, doesn't it? Like, it's so black. The veins are so thick and so bold. It still has that pink sinus. And then it pushed out this leaf pretty soon after. This one's actually also quite a fast grower. And I'm so in love with this new leaf color. It's so like maroony, kind of a dusty maroon with like a pinkish tint, and the veins are getting more like the lateral veins here are starting to come in. I think this one's going to be quite thick and bold as well. I mean, it's quite a lot smaller than my Woo 1, but I think I might try to see if I can get a chop out of it after this leaf hardens off. Like, I really don't want to cut like the tiniest little like rice grain sized cutting. So I really hope that I can get it cut pretty soon. I just love this moss that grows on the tree fern soil. I don't know if it comes in with the tree fern or if it comes in with the soil, but it's so pretty. The trouble is with this kind of moss, it makes the substrate, like, you can't really tell by the color of the substrate that it needs water or not. So you really have to like lift it and check the sides of the pot. More random updates. Do you guys remember when I snapped my Papillilaminum on camera? This is my original Papillilaminum. This thing really needs a repot. So there was one repot where I had this plant, like it was this, basically something like this, but longer, and it was no drainage, it was glass, and I was trying to pull the plant out, and it was so root bound, it would not come out, and basically I broke the top off. So that top had no roots on it, and I just stuck it into tree fern, and I put it in my tent. It was like a curled up taquito for a really long time, but eventually it did root. So it did drop a few leaves, and I did cut a couple off from spider mites. There was one leaf. Is it this one? This one, I think, was a newer leaf. It has some spider mite damage, so I just basically shunned it to the other side of my plant room, and it's been living in like very low light. Like it's next to this window that's in this room, but this window gets like nothing. It's just surrounded by really tall trees, forests. Like this is barely a window. But this new leaf it's still expanding. Look how floppy it is, and it's so big. But this, I actually don't recommend this. Like it will grow quite well, and being glass, it will be a little bit heavier for a plant that gets really like long, and this kind of thing will topple over if the pot is not heavy enough. But I do not recommend something that you can't squeeze to get the roots out of, because looking at this, there's a very high chance I will break the stem again. So I will not be potting Papillilaminum like this anymore, despite it being really nice to have like a tall pot, because with these strap leaves you have to like lift them up so they don't get like, they don't start resting on the shelf below it, resting on tables, things like that. So what I have been doing with my other Papillilaminum is just potting it into a regular orchid pot, like a clear plastic pot, and then just like rising it. Like, so I put a deli cup or a glass vessel or something underneath it to make it higher so it's not hitting. Eventually this can get so big it'll hit the floor. So whatever way you can get height on it, the better. I just don't like hanging plants from my ceiling. Like I just know myself, and I know I'm not going to go up there and water it. So the only alternative is either raise it as high as I can, and if it gets so big that it's like there's nowhere higher to go, then I'll probably have to get rid of plants when it gets that big. Do you guys also feel the same way about big plants? There's something about big plants that kind of give me the ick. It does seem like it should be the goal to get all your plants really big and mature so you can kind of see its final form. But when it gets that mature, it's the size of that plant where I enjoy it the least. Like sometimes when I get a plant to maturity, I'm just like, okay, well, time to let go and give it to the next person, because it's not my favorite size, but I do feel like this obligation to make my plants all get that same size. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with like the size of my house and the lighting conditions I have. If I had like a really big room with lots of space, high ceilings, I probably wouldn't feel the same way. But it's also one reason why I don't really grow climbers. So yeah, just random thought I had. Charmaine and I collaborated on a batch of Anthurium seedlings, and we're finally getting the first leaves. So the seed plant for this was Charmaine's Anthurium Brielle, which is a dock block kind of crystal hope. I call Minecraft crystal hope because it's like very squared off in the lobes, and then it's like a crystal hope, like very dark, very thick, bleeding silver veins. And then the pollen donor is my crystal black. This is the pollen donor here, and I'm really excited to see how these guys turn out. So the germination rate on these were not great. I would say it's not the worst, but it was like probably 2/3 germination rate. So I think I got 18 seeds in total, and only about 12 germinated. 11, something like that. I think this one is, when it's like this old and it has not pushed anything out yet, I would call that a dud. But these tiny little seedling trays are so cute. You can monitor root growth on the side because it's all clear. The lid has a little ventilation hole. And I have these in a mixture of tree fern and pon, just all the way down to the bottom. I just filled every cell with it and then just plonked the seed right on top. And I have these under monocytes. It's just at the bottom shelf right here. But I'm really excited to see how these turn out, because I'm pretty sure we're not going to sell any like until they start to turn a little silvery. So maybe like 3rd or 4th leaf onwards, we'll see. I probably won't sell any until they outgrow this seedling dome. But yeah, I thought I'd show you because that's a really exciting one. Another one we did is this one here. It's turning purple, almost ready to harvest. So this one, the mother plant is, how am I going to show you? Oh my gosh. This here, really easy to see, right? Let's see if I can lift the leaf over. This is Papillilaminum RA5 Self from Amanda. This was one of the first plants I ever got from Amanda, and isn't it so cute? It's so round and so bolate, and always has these overlapping lobes. And then the pollen parent is this guy, this Fort Sherman Ralphalinum. I'm very curious what this will look like, because they're so different. Like this one is so dark and so pointy and dagger like. Oh my gosh, this leaf. So cute. And this one is like as different as a pap can be. It really does need to live somewhere else, but I don't really have anywhere else for this to live. But look how round it is. The venation is also super different. So this is what I mean. Like this is like a very classic green color. And this is so blue toned and so gray toned in comparison. So I think that'll be really interesting. It has pushed out another inflow. This one has gone to pollen. I didn't want to pollinate it twice. And it also has another one pushing out. I don't know if you can see. No, you can't because it won't focus. You see a little inflow poking out of that petiole there. So that'll be really exciting. I might as well just show you everything I got. So this is tofu. This is Jing's plant. I am so excited to give this plant back to her because it's taking up so much space, but it's like, I love having her here, but I could also use the space. So quite a long time ago, me and Jing did a cross. So the seed parent that time was tofu, so this plant, and then the pollen parent was this plant, my dark forgetii. And the babies were just so weird. Every single baby looked so different. So this is one of my tofugetii. Look how bumpy it is. And it's got a fused sinus now. This is the newest leaf that has a completely fused sinus. And it's just pushed another one out. It's like, it's so wild because look at the other one. This is my other tofugetii. I will say it looks a little, yeah, it looks more like mom than my other tofugetii, but this one looks like a completely different set of genes. I only have 3 plants from this batch because it was a really small yield, but look at this one. This one's a runt, but look how interesting that is. It's like, it's so triangular. It just popped a new leaf. It's like a very not healthy plant. Look how tiny it is. It's probably like 3 years old, 2 years old at least, but I'm keeping it because I'm not selling it, so it doesn't really matter. It's just my plant. But how interesting is this? So anyways, tofu is now pollinated with King of Spades. So I only have that one King of Spades. It's, oh, wait. Okay, let me take her hat off. I didn't see this. I knew something was happening because this inflow was way too old to not have done anything by now without dying. I didn't see that. Ooh, so this one will bear King of Spades babies. And then the forgetii is also pollinated. It did take. This one was pollinated with tofu. So it's going to be the inverse cross that we did last time. So it's going to be forgetii tofu, or yeah, forgetii tofu, forgotten tofu. And while we're at it, this is a forgetii that I got so long ago. This was the first parent plant of my first what I call nearly dark forgetii because there's like a minimal amount of silver on it, just like the tiniest amount of silver. This one was pollinated with dark phoenix, so I thought would be really cute. The nice thing about forgetii is that their gestation period is really short, so this will probably be ready in about 2 months because it's been almost a month since I pollinated it. So this one is about the same time. I'm pretty sure I did both of these at the same time. Okay, so this is not related to seeds or anything. This is my Ace of Spades that I had chopped. I think this was like 2 months ago. I chopped it on camera, so it would have been in one of my Anthurium chop and chat videos. I took 3 cuttings off of this plant and then I realized that I couldn't fit it back into my tent. So I just put it out here. So it went from my tent to ambient conditions, having gotten a lot of its root system chopped off. I popped it into tree fern soil into like a much bigger pot. It has rooted really well. And the first leaf is so nice. I really thought that it would be like all ripped up and stuff, but it has fully formed completely. It's still super floppy, so it has some expanding to do, but it looks really good. I'm so proud of her. It took transitioning out of the tent so well, but I think part of it is probably because like it had a good substrate to root out in. It had a pretty decent root system. I probably wouldn't have put it out there if it wasn't a decent root system. It just had lost some roots from being cut, but also it was like starting to be spring, it started to be warmer, it was a little more humid in here, so all that kind of helped. But yeah, very, very proud of her. It's probably going to be a while before it starts to flower. It's been on caterpillars for quite a few leaves now, but I think Ace of Spades takes quite a long time to start flowering. And speaking of Ace, this is my Mag Ace. The new leaf is freaking massive. I don't know if I can show you the magnitude. It's so big and it's still got some expanding to do. It's kind of backlit, so you can't really see the leaf pretty well. But I was showing this plant a while ago, and I was showing you like these kind of raised veins that look kind of warped. I was kind of chalking it up to like this leaf sizing up a little bit faster than it was maybe meant to. So I think these were like kind of growing pains. I was saying that probably the next leaf after that wouldn't have it, and it doesn't. It looks pretty normal now. The fun thing about this plant is that it pushed out a flower and it has 2 spathes. This one opened and then inside was another little mini spathe. I just thought that's like a fun little mutation. But yeah, this plant is doing really well. This one was living in my exo. It was up here, but it got way too big. So it's living here now and seems to really like it. Okay, while we're showing flowers, this is my GG port from Woohoo Tropicals, this beautiful dark thing. So it's flowering. Look at this flower. I'm sure you guys have had these tiny little spadexes before, but it's so freaking funny. Like I was like, is it empty? Is there anything inside? Yeah, there was something inside. My Minahasa got chopped. I did this off camera. I chopped it. It was in pond. I chopped it, moved it to tree fern soil. It did root out nicely in the substrate. I moved it outside of my tent into this exo and this new leaf is so beautiful. It's still quite fresh. I think it has a bit of expanding to do, but look how pretty the veins are and the colors. This is one of my favorite Indo plants for sure. Dark Phoenix, King of Spades, Minahasa, they're all freaking stunning. How could I forget? This is my Subsignatum crossed with Papillilaminum, which I got from Amanda. Look at this leaf. Wowzers, trousers. This sinus is so flat. I'm not actually sure who did this cross. I don't think it was Amanda. I think she got it from somebody. I remember when it was smaller, the sinus wouldn't be completely flat like this. But as it got older, it was getting like flatter and flatter. Like there was this one, but the lobes aren't quite as wide. This was the leaf after it, getting a little wider. But this thing, when it came out, because it was facing the back of my exo, so I didn't even notice it for a little while. And then I saw the shape of it, I was like, holy crap. If this was a little bit velvetier, it would be like my favorite plant. And for that reason, I just haven't been that invested in its growth, but I don't really monitor it that much because it's just like, it hasn't historically been like my favorite obsession plant, but this leaf I think really changes things. Those like little pinched in cheekbones, and oh my gosh, it looks so golden in this light. It's so pretty. Charmaine and Jing both have a piece of this plant. Jing's was a little offset that I had separated when we first got it, and I think Charmaine's was like a cutting of it. So mine's the top, so it's more mature. So I was telling them that they have to be patient because when it gets to this kind of maturity level, it's like, it's jaw-droppingly beautiful. I mean, if up until now you were like, every Anthurium you've shown me looks exactly the same, like please tell me you see the difference with this one. I meant to show you this when I was showing you the Ace of Spades, but this was one of the cuttings that I took off of it 2 months ago. It has 2 growth points, but this one is the only one that turned into a leaf, but it's so cute. I'm trying to keep it in lower light so it'll get darker, but I was really pleasantly surprised with the size of this new leaf because this one was closer to the bottom. It was the bottom. So it was chopped from her mother plant. It was like a Silver Chrome Gardens Ace of Spades, like super, super old plant. And there was like a chonk on it. This grew from the chonk, and this was the bottom of that new growth from the chonk. So I thought it would be smaller than this, but I was very pleasantly surprised at how round and like, it's just got good, it looks like an ace. It's really nice. I will probably have to sell this soon, but I want to hold on to it a little bit longer. I kind of need to sell it, but at the same time, I want to see what the next leaf looks like. So I might just hold on to it. Okay, last, but certainly not least, this. Okay, this is what a journey I've been on. So these are Stapelia seeds. Okay, where do I even begin? So a couple of months ago, someone by the name of Leanna Day messaged Charmaine saying that like she was messaging her because my email was not visible from my channel. I know I have my email listed like in my YouTube page, but you have to click. somehow some people get my email. It's not written out, so she didn't have my contact, and she was asking Charmaine if she could send us each a copy of her book. And she kind of like said a little bit about what it was about. It's like a book of poetry and like some very, very short stories on like the female experience, a lot of really dark things, a lot of really uplifting things, hope, friendship, but also a lot of trauma that she had written, and she really wanted to share this book with us. And I was like, yes, of course I want to read that book. So it took a little while for that book to come, but I've been sitting on it for a little while. I've wanted to read it. I haven't read it cover to cover. I have actually been like skipping forward and coming, like it doesn't have to be read that way. So I've kind of been like flipping to pages, reading a whole bunch. I've been like putting it aside because it's not that kind of book, but I wanted to share this with you because it also came with this. So first let's talk about this. So these are Stapelia gigantea, I think. So like those succulents that grow those giant, I don't know if this is exactly the one, but this is some type of Stapelia gigantea with these huge stinking flowers that attract flies for pollination. And I've always been fascinated by those. I've never owned one. And she sent a packet each to me and Charmaine of these seeds. And I was like, I don't know if anything's gonna happen. I don't know if you can see on here, they were these papery little pumpkin seed looking things. They were so wispy and like crepey. They were weightless. And I was like, I don't know if there's like a viable embryo in here, but I sowed it nonetheless. I put it into tree fern soil, into a parfait cup. There's plenty more of this. This is just one of many of these little things. So I looked up how, because I've never done succulents by seed. So I looked it up in my local like cactus group, and I just searched like germination, and people were saying like it kind of sounded like the same way I would do an Anthurium seed, like keep a high humidity, keep it domed, bright light, soil, perlite, something like that. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna try it. I don't think anything's gonna happen. I think I left it for about a week, and I came back and I gasped. I gasped so hard because all these little shoots came out, and they're all wearing the seeds as their little hats. I was like creeped out and in awe at the same time, and I'm so in love with them because like they're starting to branch out a little bit at the top. I don't know if you can see the one that's right here. It's starting to do this little thing. It's growing little leaves, I guess. And I don't know at what point do I undome it and like start growing it like a succulent, but I'm going to go back into that group and reread something and just kind of deep dive into what people have been doing with seeds like after they have germinated. But this is like really exciting. I've already given one of these cups to my friend Anna. She likes little weird plants like this. She likes baby plants, so I think she was quite interested. And I have so many more of these, and I think a lot of them didn't make it, and I don't know if it was because it was too damp. I'm not really sure, but there's a few cups. I think like I probably have still like 80 of them like this, and they're not dying, they're not rotting. So this was a very, very fun experience. I was not expecting to get seeds with this book, but I was like so delighted by these. They were so fun. Just the fact that that's just how they germinate, like they wearing the seeds on top of their head. But the main thing was this book. So the book is called When the Moon Rises by Leanna. Look at this beautiful goddess. She wrote me a letter. I'm not going to read it to you, but she wrote me a letter to go with it. And it also says in the preface of the book that it's not something you should just like read. It does get quite dark at times. And there are like a lot of very uplifting parts as well. But there are a lot of things that will read different to different people depending on your personal lived experience. She did ask me and Charmaine to read a particular poem together on friendship, which we did when I was at her house, and we both started crying. And it's really funny because in her letter, I'm not gonna read you it, but she did say that when she watches my videos, she feels that I'm the type of person that she could just sit in silence with and be very comfortable. And that's how I feel reading her poems. Because when you have something, even if you don't know somebody, but you know that they have very similar experiences, even though they're not the same experience, but you have this bond, it feels very validating. Like I feel seen and I see her and I've never talked to her, but I really cherish this book. And Leanna, I don't know if you're watching this, but I really am so grateful that you decided to share this with me. I do want to just read you one poem. It's very short. This came directly after a poem that she said that I would really like, and I love this poem. If you read this book, the poem right before this spoke to me. But this one's called Loyal Bean. Feet that smell like corn chips, scratchy tongue against my cheek, nubby tail wagging 1,000 miles per hour. Barks and squeaks translate to, I'm so happy you're home, I missed you so much. Floppy ears, I swear she's smiling, furry belly, familiar, my best friend, the goodest girl. That's how I felt reading the poem that I had to read with Charmaine. She put us on camera and she read it out loud, but it was called The Romance of Friendship. So Leanna does sell on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. So I will link the Canadian link, the American link, the Barnes & Noble link in the description. I really recommend it. It really does. It's not a book that you just like, it's not like nighttime reading. You just read the whole thing all at once. You visit it when you need it. You read it even when you don't think you need it, and it will feed you. Just to share one tiny line of her letter, she said, I think the most important thing we can do as women is to keep talking to each other. And I could not agree more. And she also said, P.S. I thought Anthuriums were dumb before I found you. So this is perfect. This is perfect. I'm so happy. So that is the emotional end to my growth updates, show and tell, etc video. Everyone I talked about in this video will be linked in the description. Make sure you check them out. They're just wonderful people. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next one.